Hey everyone, Mark Meckler here, president of Convention Estates, coming to you with the Sunday Night BattleCry. I got a little snazzied up for you guys today. I hope you don't mind. I was just tired of wearing the t-shirt and the hat all weekend, so we put on the sport coat and the shirt, do a little bit fancier. You'll take me more seriously. Hopefully the clothes don't make a difference. It's the information. I know you love the information here. We always start on the BattleCry with a call to action, and I do have a very specific call to action for you this week. That is, go on to X. If you're not on X, go get an account, because that's where the world's news is happening right now. Go on to X. Go look at my posts at Mark Meckler. If you haven't looked me up, go ahead and look me up and subscribe there. And you'll see pinned to the top of my post is a post about Elon Musk. And the reason there's a post about Elon Musk is there's been a bunch of buzz this week. We're going to talk about this more later on, that Elon should support Convention Estates. In fact, if you look at that top post, you will see Ben Shapiro talking about Elon Musk should support Convention Estates. So what I want you to do is go there, comment on that post, repost that post. So it's called a quote post, where you say something and repost it. And make sure in your post or your comment that you tag at Elon Musk. That's how we keep it in front of him. I would like to encourage Elon to come on board to support Convention Estates. If a lot of you are doing that, it keeps it in front of Elon in his feed, and he's more likely to pay attention to it. So again, look at my post on there, the top post that I have pinned up there. It's about Elon Musk. Repost that, comment on it. And when you comment or repost, make sure you tag Elon by putting at the @ symbol and Elon Musk. And that's a really easy, specific one. Shouldn't take you more than 1 minute to do that. You can commit a minute, right? I think you can. I know you can. Let's dig into the news this week. It is a big news week, and it starts with the passage of the big, beautiful bill, or the one big, beautiful bill, as they call it, the OBBB. And the question is, what does this mean for the country? The bill passed the House, the Senate. We had J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, cast the tie-breaking vote. And so that ends up being a 51-50 pass. The House worked it through. I got to say, I got to give credit where it's due for the passage on this thing to John Thune and Mike Johnson. This was some masterful legislating. It's very hard to do this with such slim majorities. We didn't get what we wanted. I mean, I'll just say that up front. For me, I'd like to see restructuring of all the entitlement programs, bringing down of the debt, all that stuff. I want to see. There's a lot of stuff that didn't make it in this bill. I think there's a lot of bad stuff in the bill, a lot of pork, a lot of spending that I don't agree with. But, and this is a major but, a big old but, which is it's the best you're going to do under the circumstances. One of the things that we have to be able to acknowledge as conservatives is we acknowledge reality. Reality is whatever it is. And in this case, the political reality is that there is not the political will to make the big cuts, not only in Congress, but in the United States of America right now. And it's going to be up to me and you and everybody like us to educate people that we're going to have to make those cuts over time, or we're going to lose the country. We're going to crash it financially. It's got to get done at some point. We just didn't have the political will or the majorities to get it done right now. But this is a giant victory for President Trump. Can't underestimate this. This is his signature piece of legislation for a second term. He's now got that under his belt. He can move on to other things. Congratulations to the Trump administration for getting this done. In the long term, I have to say there is a negative consequence to this. I'm hoping the economy grows and things boom, but the spending continues to go up. And at some point, that's going to cause a major problem. I laugh because I think people don't want to acknowledge this. The reality is that if you spend and spend and spend, if you debase our currency, which is what we're doing, our currency is worth less and less and less. Eventually, there's going to be some form of a crash. I don't know when that comes. I don't know exactly what that looks like. The bond market seems pretty nervous right now. Something has to give at some point. That's one of the reasons we need a Convention of States, impose a balanced budget amendment with tax caps, spending caps, put that on a trajectory towards recovery. You don't balance it all at once overnight, but you create sort of a grandfather system where it ramps up and in. Eventually we can recover, but somebody's going to have to do something at some point. I think that somebody is you or me, because we're engaged. We're engaged in Convention of States, and we're doing the right thing. We're encouraging Elon to do it. I would encourage the president to get on board. Maybe we can get Elon and the president to agree on this one thing. All right, the second big thing in the news this week was Epstein, right? Epstein didn't kill himself. Epstein did kill himself. There's a client list. There's no client list. It's a conspiracy. It's a cover-up. I don't know the answer to any of those questions. And I don't think any of us do. And so I want to be really clear. We hear all these quote unquote conspiracy theories. A lot of them are very believable because so much bad stuff has been exposed that looked like a conspiracy theory originally turned out to be an actual conspiracy. In this case, I just don't know. The one thing that I do absolutely know for sure is that this thing has been so badly mishandled by this administration. It is a PR disaster. Again, regardless of the underlying facts, I don't know what the underlying facts are. None of us do, but I do know for sure total PR disaster. I would personally pin that at this point on Pam Bondi. And I hate to say that. I'm glad she's there. I think she's a person of good faith, generally speaking. But the way this has been handled is she talked about the Epstein file sitting on her desk, the client list sitting on her desk. She made a big deal about what a bombshell this was going to be, how she was going to be totally transparent and release it. She brings all these influencers to the White House, gives them binders that contain literally nothing new, like just binders full of public information. It was a PR stunt debacle. And now to just close this thing out, say it's all done. Epstein didn't kill himself. We're not giving you any more information. Don't look at this anymore. Look at this hand over here because the Epstein thing's in this hand. That seems like how they're handling it, and it seems like a terrible mistake. I saw some news this week that Dan Bongino had a little bit of a blow up apparently in the White House. Kash Patel was there. Pam Bondi was there. He's very unhappy how this was being handled. Some people thought he might even be quitting. I do think it's a disaster, and I think it's affecting all of their reputations. I think it's affecting the reputation of the administration, and I do not believe that this is being handled cleanly or openly. Again, I don't know, is there a conspiracy to cover it up? I'm not even commenting on that. I do have a lot of faith in Dan Bongino, but I am commenting on the fact that whatever the case is, this has been grossly unprofessionally mishandled from a public relations perspective, and they better get their heads around that. Because what I'm hearing is a bunch of conservatives who support the administration that are very unhappy about this. That's not good for the base. And I think they're going to have to do something about that. They're going to have to figure out how to address this. They can't just pretend this is going to go away because I don't seem to see it going away. I don't believe it's going to go away. And I think it affects trust in the institution. It's affecting trust in the Trump administration among some of their strongest base. So they're going to have to figure that out. They're going to have to fix the PR mess. I don't know whether Bondi makes it through this, whether Bongino or Patel make it through this. Somebody's going to have to do something to fix this huge mess. In other big news, international news, the Ukraine-Russia war drags on in its third year, but things seem to be changing. And by that, what I mean is not that the battle lines are shifting. They're really not shifting, but that Donald Trump seems to have come to a different conclusion. If you look at what Vladimir Zelensky is doing, the leader of Ukraine, it's pretty much whatever Trump wants him to do, right? He is playing along with Trump. Trump says, I want you to agree to a ceasefire. He says, I agree to a ceasefire. Trump says, I want it with no conditions. Zelensky says, I'll do it with no conditions. Literally, Trump says, I'm offended because Zelensky doesn't wear a suit to the White House. Zelensky wears a suit to the White House. Zelensky is playing ball with the United States, and he has to. I mean, the major part of his weapon system, his ammunition comes from the United States. He seems to have gotten the hint on that. He understands he's not going to be able to bully Trump, so he's playing ball. Trump had tried to play ball with Putin, and Putin's just not down for it. He's not playing ball at all. He's not doing anything Trump hoped he would do. He's not interested in talking ceasefire. In fact, what he's doing is he's increasing his attacks on Ukraine. This week in Ukraine, we had the largest scale drone attacks in the history of the war in Kyiv. Right, so right there in the capital city, bombing the capital city indiscriminately, pretty unbelievable stuff. I mean, this is just nasty urban warfare, hitting civilians. Clearly, Putin doesn't care, and it is angering Trump because it's making Trump look bad. He said he was going to end this war. He said he would end the war on day one, if we remember. And I know, look, I'm not criticizing Trump for not ending the war day one because I don't believe that was possible. But I am saying Trump is a guy who likes to keep his promises, and I mean that in the best sense of it. The Domestic Policy Council calls themselves the Office of Promises Kept. He likes to keep his promises. They track all of those things. He didn't end the war on day one. Here we are, now, whatever we are, 8 months, 7 months into Trump's second administration. He hasn't entered the war. Doesn't look like he's making any progress. So that's changing his perspective clearly. He is arming up Ukraine. There's probably going to be more of that to come. That's the only way to put pressure on Putin. So we are seeing a shift in U.S. policy in Ukraine. There's a little subtext here that arms shipments last week were apparently paused to Ukraine, to Ukraine's great consternation. Trump did not authorize that. We don't know who authorized that. Seems like he's unhappy that that happened without his authorization. That came up through the Department of Defense. Hegseth did sign off on that. It doesn't look like they're throwing Hegseth under the bus. So I don't know where that came from, but we will see what we see on that one. Hopefully they dig that out and figure out who's running their own foreign policy separate from the president. In other international news, Israel, Gaza, Israel, Syria, Israel, Lebanon, Israel, Iran. There is widespread conflict in the Middle East. I know the Iran thing is supposed to be over, but you just keep seeing stuff getting blown up in Iran, assassinations in Iran. Is that coming from Israel? I don't know. It could be coming from Saudi Arabia. The Iranians are mortal enemies, and now that Iranian defenses are down and there's a bit of chaos there, it could be the Saudis taking out the people that they believe are dangerous, because Iran is a threat to the region and worldwide. The Israelis have said to the Iranians, if you behave poorly, then we're just going to come after you again. We're not going to be held back. You have the Israelis moving forward in Gaza, trying to clean out the terrorists in Gaza. They keep finding more and more terrorists, more and more terror tunnels. This whole thing can end. I just want to remind everybody, this is super important. The situation in Gaza would be over tomorrow, literally tomorrow, if Hamas just surrenders, gives up their arms, comes out of their hidey holes, give up all of the hostages and the remains of the deceased hostages, it would be over. They are the ones that have the power to end it. In any military conflict, the way military conflict ends is either the surrender, the total defeat and surrender of one party is generally how it ends. Like if you have a ceasefire, that's not really an end. That's just kind of holding things where they are. There's zero chance that Israel can allow Hamas to remain in power. If you want to know how evil Hamas is, look at the terms of their ceasefire request. One thing is you get Israel all the way out of Gaza. That's not going to happen because Hamas built a terror infrastructure there for the specific purpose of attacking Israel. They're not going to allow that to happen again. You want to see really how evil they are? They say that the U.S. and the Israelis are not allowed to distribute aid to the Palestinian people. They're not allowed to have aid distribution centers. Only Hamas can do that. Why? Because they steal money and food from those distribution centers. They take the international aid, they steal the money, they steal the food for their fighters, they charge people at exorbitant rates to get aid, which it's free from the U.S. or free from Israel. That's what Hamas wants because they want control over their population. And they're losing that. So I actually think things are going, I want to be careful I said relatively well. It is a war zone. People are dying. That's never good. But compared to what it could be there, I think the Israelis now say they have 65% of Gaza is completely controlled by the Israeli military. They got to get to 100%. When they do, that war will end. The hostages, to the extent they're still alive, will come home. Hopefully the deceased will have their remains returned. And we will see a new kind of peace in the Middle East. That's my prediction for what goes there. All right, we're doing a new feature that we've been doing a little bit lately, not necessarily consistently. I'd like to see it more consistently. I think it's kind of fun, at least for me. And that is we're doing my video reactions. So what we do is producer G puts up a video or two, and I watch those videos along with you guys, and then I give you my reactions. So producer G, let's roll the first video.
I think just electing a few better people is going to change the trajectory. So you need to do a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution, and you can do that through the states. You can do it through Article 5. If Elon wanted to weigh in on that and work on those state legislatures, he would have a monumental impact on doing this. And we also need term limits for members of Congress. And so you can do both of those things.
Well, meanwhile, Elon Musk has been talking about how he wants to start a third party. And there are some who are encouraging him instead to put his money behind a convention of states, which I think is actually the right idea. Elon has tons of money. A convention of states essentially would be designed to add constitutional amendments, like, for example, a balanced budget amendment, like, for an example, a limited government amendment. There are a bunch of things that could be done on a structural level that would actually help and could be done by a convention of states. That would be the best use of the money.
A better option for Elon Musk, put his money and his effort behind the convention of the states, the effort by states to call a constitutional convention, and for the first time since the founding of this country, rein in the central government with the power the federal, our founding fathers gave us.
And as long as you put your own political career first and the country second, things are never going to change. That's why I'm a big fan of the Convention of States provided for in the Constitution, where the people call a convention and we get a balanced budget amendment in the Constitution and a lot of other reforms.
Yeah, so I'd rather have Elon working with us, recognizing it's tough. And one of the ways to do that is I've always been a big supporter of the Convention of the States, get the states together. And my standpoint, I'd want an amendment to limit government spending to a certain percentage of GDP. I think that would have the greatest impact.
A third party, I don't think, is the way to go. I think if anything, and I do also agree with Ron Johnson, I think Governor DeSantis also put out that call the other day. Let's be focused on the Article 5 Convention of States. Yeah. And let's actually do things like a constitutional amendment around term limits for members of Congress, because I fully support that. I think it's long overdue.
Okay, so you think that makes my heart glad? I hope it makes your heart glad. Look what's happening. We're not responsible for that in the sense that we didn't ask those people to talk about it. We didn't ask Ben Shapiro to talk about it. Mark Levin also tweeted about it, put something out on X about it. I know all those guys, but I didn't talk to any of them and ask them to do it. This is just the moment that's happening right now. So that really excites me. This is why I need you to go to my post on X and actually repost that and tag Elon Musk, comment on that, tag Elon Musk, because this moment is happening naturally. It's super exciting. I love those videos. Thanks, Producer G, for making my day. All right, let's do the next one.
Are taking what should be saved for the next generation and spending it now.
Is that how you feel?
Yeah, we're robbing the next generation, but it's got so bad, we're robbing ourselves 5 years from now.
Right. It's getting that close.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about, are you talking about the national debt overall? Yeah. Okay. I've heard you talk a lot about it, and I see you got your,
This is my debt badge. It shows I've got 3 levels of brightness. So if you wear it to the movies, you can tone it down and not blind your date. But okay, so I've got on the brightest level there. Hopefully your camera can see it.
Yeah.
I wear this every second I'm in the House of Representatives. And so everybody thinks the Federal Reserve is setting interest rates. You know, there's all this discussion. Will the Fed raise the rate? Will the Fed lower the rate? The reality right now is the Fed can't do much, because if they lower the rate to, let's say, 4%, and try to tell people to buy our debt at 4%, the people who normally buy our debt, those foreign countries and those institutional investors, are saying, you're not a good investment at 4%. We want 5%. And that's a big problem, because just to put it in perspective, let's round this number. If it were $30 trillion and we were paying 5%, that is $16,000 per family. I've already done the math. I'm not doing all that in my head right now, but it's $16,000 per family of interest that we are paying.
Got it.
So when you pay your taxes for your family, the first $16,000 goes to nothing except for the interest that's paid to those foreign countries and to the big bankers.
But so we're never going to defeat this number.
We might get in a situation like Puerto Rico got into a few years ago, where the people said, we're just not loaning you anymore. And you know what happens that day? It's actually it'll be scary for a lot of people. For me, it would be a good day, because that's the day we have to balance the budget. When people say, we're not going to loan you any more money, you're not a good investment, we don't trust that you'll pay it back, that is the day that you can only spend as much money as you take in on any given week.
Look, I got to agree with everything that Representative Massie is saying there. He's absolutely right about all of that. The federal government's out of control. The debt's completely out of control. There's not much that the Fed can do with interest rates right now. And we're paying too much in debt already, and the interest on the debt already. Total agreement with Massie. But I'm generally in disagreement with Massie. And I say disagreement, I don't mean philosophically. Massie's right, almost always philosophically, but all he does is vote no against everything. He's not able to accomplish anything in Congress at all. And fundamentally, this is where we really part ways. He's opposed to calling a convention of states. So here's a guy that wants us to be forced to balance the budget, but he won't do anything to force a balanced budget amendment. Like, he literally just lacks the courage. So he points himself out, presents himself as the most courageous guy in Congress when it comes to the one tool we have short of an economic collapse. By the way, what he's promoting there is total economic collapse. Remember, if we can't pay our debt, the economy will collapse. Our economy will collapse. The world economy collapses. It's utter chaos. Your family won't be able to pay your bills. We're going to have hyperinflation like what we saw in the Weimar Republic or we see in Argentina. That's what he's promoting. and he won't call for a convention of states. Why? Because he's afraid of it. So look, I agree with what he's saying factually about our debt. It's a substantial problem. His idea of a fix is we just need to crash the entire country. We don't need to do that. We need to call a convention of states. So go to that post on X, my post with Elon Musk, and make sure you repost it or comment on it and tag at Elon Musk. If you want more news and you want this valuable stuff delivered straight to you, including the calls to action, I'll ask you to sign up at conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list. That's conventionofstates.com/BattleCry list. That's really important. You get there, you'll get an email every week, kind of give you a summary of the battle cry. It'll give you the call to action so you know exactly what's going on. Check out last week's episode of COS at Home with Mike Ferris. Mike Ferris, of course, my co-founder of Convention of States, one of the smartest constitutional lawyers in the country. Next month's episode will be with NRA board member Craig Haggard. You know, we went to the NRA convention this year. We were very warmly received, so we're pretty excited about beginning our work with the NRA. We believe in the Second Amendment here at Convention of States. We're going to protect it. We're going to do everything we can on behalf of the Second Amendment, and nobody does more than the NRA, so really excited about that. Make sure you hit the like button on this video, the subscribe, ring the notification bell. That way you're sure you'll never miss one of these. If you miss, I'll be lonely because you won't be here. So we need you here. So again, hit that like, or subscribe, or ring the notification button. If you want to ask any questions, go to www.conventionofstates.com/ask Mark. You can ask me anything you want. I do mean anything you want. I think Producer G, we need to do an upcoming episode where you kind of spike the questions. You did a good job last time we did that. We need some more really interesting questions. Here are this week's questions. Not that they're not interesting, but I just think Producer G was awesome at it. First is from Tony Bilbao. Does our government get influenced by political pressure or big money? Yes. How's that? That's the short answer. It's by both. I mean, certainly what the big donors say matters to them. What the big corporations say matters to them. What advertising says, what organizations like ours say, that all matters to them. That's all pressure. But a lot of times also the big money is what's creating the pressure. Pharma lobbyists, or big money behind a particular bill or a particular part of a bill. It's not cash payments to the politicians. Man, people make it seem like that. I don't think that's their big thing. It's the big money that's spent to do the big influence. Steve Bottoms asked, what can we do to make sure that Donald Trump is reelected in the next election? Thanks, Steve. The answer is nothing. Like, Donald Trump is done. The question really should be, and I'm assuming you're tongue in cheek, what can we do to make sure that the MAGA movement continues, that this approach to government continues, that this idea that we have to take power away from the federal government and give it back to the states continues? One is, we got to look at the people who are coming up in the party and see who represents this ideology the best. There's going to be a bunch of candidates in this next election. Of course, J.D. Vance is going to run for president. We know that. I think you also can look and say pretty obviously Marco Rubio is going to run for president. Both those guys are going to be highly qualified. I like them both. We'll see. Ted Cruz is going to run for president. So we're going to have another Cruz run at this thing. I think Kristi Noem is probably going to take a shot at it. I think you might have, I'm not sure who else. Who maybe, I don't know, probably other female candidates. Maybe Kim Reynolds out of Iowa will run. I just don't know. Nikki Haley, I think, has been rumored to take another run at it. There's going to be a whole bunch of candidates, maybe not 17, maybe. I don't know. That's how many I think we had last time. There's going to be a bunch. You might have RFK Jr. run as a Republican. You might have Tulsi Gabbard run as a Republican. There's all kinds of stuff that could happen. The question is, how do we, as grassroots activists, judge those candidates and look at them and decide who best represents our interests? Or if we want MAGA to continue, which I'm a big fan of the MAGA movement, then the question is, who's going to carry that standard, that banner into the next fight? So I don't think we're going to have a third term for President Trump. I hope that was tongue in cheek for you, but that was a serious answer to that. Again, to close this out, I just want to remind you, Convention of States is literally the only organized grassroots Article 5 movement with 19 states already passed. We're more than halfway there. We need to get it all done. Some people talk about just a balanced budget amendment. Some people talk about just term limits. I promise you, absolutely, with total certainty, those things will not fix what ails the country. You need more than that. get a balanced budget amendment, we need to make sure that we prevent the government, the federal government, from doing unfunded mandates. Can't do that with just a balanced budget amendment. We need to limit spending. We need to have tax caps. All these things are not within a balanced budget amendment. Balanced budget amendment just says balance your budget. They could do it on your back with taxes, or they could do it by printing money. We want to make sure that they can't do those things. And so you need a balanced budget amendment, tax caps, spending caps, generally accepted accounting principles. People talk about term limits alone on just Congress. I think that's a problem. If you do that, what you end up with is empowering staff and bureaucrats. That's why our application allows for term limits to be imposed on federal officials. Congress itself, yes, absolutely. Senators and members of the House, but also their staffers and bureaucrats who were never meant there to be lifetime careers. And finally, Convention of States is the only movement towards an Article 5 convention that allows you to do away with agencies permanently. No more government involvement in education, no more Department of Education, no more EPA, no more Health and Human Services. All of these things were never meant to be functions of the federal government. They're meant to be functions of the states. That power needs to return to the states. So this unites supporters of term limits, fiscal restraints, and limited government in a comprehensive plan. It's never been done before. People tell us it can't be done. Clearly, there's a whole bunch of people out there like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Ron Johnson, hopefully Elon Musk soon, me and you who believe it can be done. You can do it. I believe in you. I know you can do it. Again, go to my post on Elon Musk on X and make sure you tag Elon in your response. That's all we got for this week. I'll see you next week on the BattleCry. God bless you guys.